Today's story highlights Anneliese Huber, a 24-year-old German nurse. Captured by Americans, she anticipated execution, but instead faced a question that shattered her beliefs. Will you help us save lives? This is her story. May 7th, 1945, 14:20 hours, Field Hospital, outside Strakonice, Czechoslovakia. Anneliese Huber, a Wehrmacht nurse from Dresden, pressed against a blood-stained wall. 3 years on the Eastern Front taught her battlefield medicine, but Nazi propaganda ingrained a different truth. American capture meant torture and death, especially for women in uniform. As American boots approached, her heart hammered. A tall American captain stopped, his uniform mud-caked, eyes tired. He noted her Red Cross armband and spoke in clear German, "You're a nurse?" Anneliese nodded, unable to speak, certain this was the end. He gestured to the wounded in the corner. American and German soldiers alike, blood-soaking dressings. "Our transport is delayed, many wounded. Can you assist?" The words stunned her. Assist? She was the enemy, expecting execution or torture, as the propaganda film showed. Yet this officer was asking her to save lives, even his own soldiers. Her voice cracked. "Yes, I can help." Within the hour, she worked alongside a young American medic, Patterson. He spoke no German, yet they communicated through medicine. He instinctively handed her instruments. She cleaned wounds while he administered morphine. When a German private screamed from a shattered femur, Patterson held his hand as Anneliese set the bone. There was no cruelty, just two medical professionals treating the wounded. The propaganda promised monsters. She found humans. Though 3 days later, May 10th, 1945, Anneliese sat in an American transport truck with 17 other captured German medical personnel, mainly nurses and 2 doctors. Her zip-tied hands were loose, not painful. A young American private offered her canteen. "Water?" he asked in broken German. Expecting poison, she tasted clean water. At a checkpoint, an American sergeant paused at her ID. "Dresden?" he asked. She braced herself. Dresden was rubble, her family's fate unknown. His face softened. "My grandmother was from Munich. I'm sorry about the bombing." He moved on, an American soldier apologizing to a German prisoner. The world felt inverted. 2 weeks of processing camps followed, in Austria, then France. Anneliese continuously braced for torture, which never came. Propaganda depicted starvation, but she received 3 meals daily, cold and bland, but more food than she'd seen in months. Beatings were promised, but guards mostly ignored them, occasionally offering cigarettes or newspapers. A British sergeant in France even returned a fallen photograph of her mother and sister outside their Dresden apartment, a building no longer standing. "Keep it safe, miss," he said gently in German. "Family's important." That night, she cried not from fear, but confusion. On June 3rd, 1945, the transport ship docked in New Orleans. The thick, humid heat was suffocating, starkly different from Czechoslovakia's spring. American soldiers herded the prisoners onto buses without rough handling or shouting, just tired men doing their job. Camp Ruston, Louisiana, June 5th, 1945. The bus passed through gates topped with barbed wire and American flags. Anneliese saw orderly barracks, guard towers, fences, but also neat pathways and a parade ground. She expected a death camp. This resembled a military base. Processing took 4 hours. An American clerk, speaking excellent German, recorded her details without judgment. A female American nurse conducted a professional, gentle medical examination. No diseases were detected. Anneliese received a towel, soap, and clean clothes. "Barrack 7, the clerk said. "Dinner at 1800 hours. Tomorrow, you'll receive work assignments." Work assignments. Not execution, not torture. Work. Barrack 7 housed 32 German women, mostly nurses and clerical staff, captured in the war's final weeks. The building smelled of fresh paint. Each woman had a cot with clean sheets, a footlocker, and a shelf. Anneliese touched her pillow. White fabric, real stuffing, not straw. Greta Zimmermann, a 29-year-old nurse from Hamburg, was on the next cot. "Been here 3 weeks," Greta said. "The Americans, they're not what we were told. 3 meals, medical care, even church services on Sundays." "Church services?" Anneliese whispered. "Lutheran and Catholic. An American chaplain conducts them, praying in German he learned from a book. His pronunciation is awful, but he tries. Dinner in the mess hall shattered more propaganda. Metal trays, real plates, beans, bread, canned fruit, coffee. Substantial, not luxurious, but more than German civilians were eating back home. Guards watched, but didn't threaten. One even smiled, helping a German woman clean her accidentally dropped tray. Anneliese ate slowly, cautious, but no trap was sprung. The daily routine quickly established itself. Wake, roll call, breakfast, work, lunch, more work, dinner, free time until 2200 lights out. Work varied, laundry, kitchen, maintenance. Guards were professional, distant but not cruel. Some attempted awkward German conversation, others remained silent. No one was beaten or starved. The propaganda was lies, all lies. June 15th, 1945. Anneliese was scrubbing floors in the administration building when she heard raised voices from the medical office. English, too fast. Major William Hartley, an American doctor in his 40s with grey hair and exhausted eyes, emerged. He noticed her. "You are Anneliese Huber, the nurse?" Her stomach clenched. "Yes, sir." "My office, please." She followed, mind racing. This was it. Hartley's small office was cluttered. He gestured to a chair. "Boo, I reviewed your records," he said. 3 years Eastern Front, field hospital, trauma surgery, amputations, infection control. He paused. "We have a problem, Miss Huber. Camp Ruston has 1,500 German prisoners, but only 2 American doctors and 4 nurses. Men are dying from preventable infections. Wounds are going septic. I need help." Anneliese stared blankly. "I don't understand. I'm asking if you'll work in the camp hospital, treating prisoners, your people." He leaned forward. "I know you're a prisoner and what you were told about Americans, but wounded men don't care about politics. They just want to live. Will you help?" The room spun. Help the Americans? Treat German prisoners while in American custody? She was supposed to be the enemy, the Americans' torturers. Instead, this exhausted doctor asked her to save lives. Her hands, honed on the Eastern Front, had saved German soldiers for a lost war. Here, in this stifling Louisiana heat, she could save lives without sending men back to slaughter. "The Eastern Front," she replied quietly. "I saw terrible things. Frostbite, amputations, typhus, men dying without supplies, medicine or hope." She met his eyes. "You have medicine here? Proper instruments?" "Not enough, never enough, but more than nothing." "Then yes," Anneliese affirmed. "I'll help." Relief or respect softened Major Hartley's expression. "You'll work under supervision initially. Nurse Patterson will observe, prove your competence, and we'll expand your duties." He stood, extending his hand. "Thank you, Miss Huber." She shook his hand. A German prisoner shaking hands with an American major. Unbelievable to Dresden or Nazi propaganda. But it was happening. June 16th, 1945, 0700 hours. Anneliese reported to the camp hospital, a wooden building with 20 beds, a small surgical suite, and a supply closet that would make an Eastern Front doctor weep. Real morphine, sulfa drugs, clean bandages, sterilization equipment. Nurse Patterson, the medic from Czechoslovakia, grinned. "Heard you signed up," he said through an interpreter. "Good, we need you." Her first patient was Klaus Becker, 22, with an infected shrapnel wound in his shoulder. American doctors had been treating him, but the infection persisted. Anneliese examined the red, swollen, oozing wound. She'd seen thousands like it. Without proper debridement, he'd lose his arm, perhaps his life. "I need to open it wider," she told Patterson. Remove all dead tissue. It will hurt, even with morphine. Patterson nodded. Ye do what you need to do. She worked, Patterson assisting, Major Hartley observing. Her hands recalled every lesson from the Eastern Front. She cut necrotic tissue, irrigated, packed with sulfur-soaked gauze. Becca screamed, but the wound, when finished, looked clean, pink tissue underneath. Bleeding meant living flesh. Change dressings twice daily, she instructed Patterson. Watch for fever. If redness spreads, tell me immediately. Major Hartley approached. Where did you learn that technique? Stalingrad, Anneliese replied. We had almost nothing. Every supply and cut had to be precise. She paused. I've seen men die from smaller infections, but he'll live now, if we're careful. Then we'll be careful, Hartley promised. Word spread through Camp Ruston. The German nurse was competent. The prisoners specifically requested her, a Wehrmacht corporal with trench foot, a Luftwaffe mechanic with a badly set wrist, a teenage SS private with pneumonia. Anneliese treated them all, without judgment or politics, just medicine. American staff were initially suspicious, but results surpassed nationality. Infection rates dropped, recovery times improved. Hartley expanded her responsibilities, inventory, training other German medics, even assisting in surgeries. June 28, 1945. Reviewing supply lists in the hospital office, Anneliese watched American guards play baseball with German prisoners. Laughter carried across the compound. She didn't understand the game, but the sound of former enemies sharing a simple, human moment tightened her throat. Major Hartley found her. Becca's wound is healing beautifully. You saved his arm. More probably his life. I was just doing my job. No, Hartley corrected. You proved something important, that healing matters more than hate, that humanity survives war. He handed her a letter. This arrived for you. The Red Cross located your family. Anneliese's hands shook, opening it. Her mother's handwriting, her sister's signature. They had survived Dresden, barely, living in Bavaria, starving, but alive. She read it 3 times, tears streaming. Hartley quietly exited, giving her privacy. When composed, she found him in the ward. Major Hartley, she said, my family. They're alive. The Red Cross found them. He smiled. I'm glad, Miss Huber, truly glad. I want to help more, she declared. Whatever you need, I know I'm a prisoner. I know I'm supposed to be the enemy, but you've given me my humanity back. Well, let me give something in return. Hartley considered her. We're receiving more prisoners next week, wounded from recent battles. Some will need extensive care, surgery, recovery, rehabilitation. I could use someone with your experience. He paused. But understand, you'll be treating American soldiers too, men who fought against Germany. Can you do that? Anneliese recalled the American captain in Czechoslovakia who'd asked for help instead of shooting her. Patterson sharing his canteen, the British sergeant returning her family photo, every unexpected kindness. Yes, she said, wounded men are just wounded men. They all bleed the same. They all deserve care. Then we have work to do, Hartley said. That night, Anneliese wrote her first letter home. Her mother needed to know she was safe and the truth about American captivity. Well, the propaganda had been lies. Dearest Mutti, she wrote, I am alive and well in America. You won't believe this, but the Americans have asked me to work as a nurse. They feed us. They treat us with respect. Everything the party told us about the enemy was false. The Americans aren't monsters. They're just people. Tired, grieving people who want the war to end as much as we do. I'm helping in a hospital, saving German lives in American captivity. It's strange and wonderful and nothing like what I expected. I think maybe this is what healing looks like. Not just wounds, but the world. I miss you terribly. Stay safe. I'll come home when they let me. Love, Anneliese. She sealed the letter, giving it to the American mail clerk. He promised it would reach Bavaria via Red Cross. She believed him. A month ago, Way she would have believed nothing an American said. Now, almost everything. As July 1945 began, the Pacific War raged on. Camp Ruston swelled with more German prisoners. The hospital expanded. Major Hartley officially appointed Anneliese head nurse for German POW medical services. She trained other captured nurses, organized supplies, and improved sanitation. The work consumed her, leaving her exhausted but satisfied each night. This was medicine as it should be. Healing without ideology, care without cruelty, humanity without hate. The Americans had restored her purpose, showing her a world where compassion triumphed over propaganda, where former enemies became colleagues, where a German nurse in Louisiana could save lives simply because they were worth saving. On July 4th, 1945, American Independence Day, the camp guards organized a celebration with music, food, and fireworks. German prisoners were invited. Anneliese stood in the warm Louisiana night, watching explosions of color across the sky, feeling something absent for years: hope. Major Hartley appeared beside her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "Yes," she agreed. "Major, I have a question. When the war ends and I eventually go home, could I continue this work? Help rebuild? German hospitals will need everyone." Hartley smiled. "I think that's an excellent plan, Miss Huber, and I'll write you the strongest recommendation any nurse has ever received." The fireworks continued. Red, white, blue. Colors once signifying the enemy, now meaning light in darkness, beauty after destruction, the possibility of tomorrow. Anneliese Huber had expected a death sentence. Instead, she was asked to save lives. And in saving others, she saved herself. This was only the beginning. September 1945, Camp Ruston, Louisiana. Anneliese Huber, 24, a former Wehrmacht nurse, had become an essential medical assistant. Though the pneumonia outbreak that brought her skills to American attention had passed, Dr. Eleanor Vance continued to rely on her. The camp infirmary, unprepared for complex challenges, benefited from Anneliese's experience. Her knowledge, born of necessity in Wehrmacht field hospitals with limited supplies, allowed her to improvise and save lives when others could not. Lieutenant James Morrison, a medical officer from the Pacific Theater, approached Anneliese with a chart. His face betrayed the deep exhaustion of someone who had witnessed too much death. "Miss Huber," he began, his German accented, "we have a corporal with a severe compound tibia fracture and significant tissue damage. Dr. Vance fears infection before he can reach the Shreveport base hospital tomorrow morning." He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable seeking advice from a former enemy. "She mentioned you might have experience with alternative wound management." Anneliese examined the chart. The fracture was severe, with exposed bone and muscle trauma, posing a high risk of gas gangrene in Louisiana's humid climate. On the Eastern Front, she had seen hundreds of similar injuries where evacuation was impossible. The Wehrmacht used a two-stage irrigation protocol, she explained in improving English. First, a high-pressure flush with boiled salt water to remove debris. Then, we pack the wound with honey-soaked gauze. Medical grade is best, but pure honey works. The osmotic pressure draws out infection, and the honey's hydrogen peroxide kills bacteria. We change the packing every 6 hours. It's painful, but keeps tissue viable until surgery. Morrison's skepticism was evident. "Honey, we have sulfa powder, Miss Huber, modern antimicrobials." He implied her judgment was flawed by desperation. Anneliese understood his doubt. She had experienced it herself, yet she had seen honey save limbs. "Sulfa powder is excellent," she countered, "but it can't reach all infection sites in deep bone trauma. Honey penetrates where sulfa cannot. In Russia, we used both, sulfa for surface wounds, honey for deep contamination. This combination reduced amputation rates by 30% over 6 months. I kept meticulous records." Though her records burned in a shelled field hospital, the knowledge remained. Doctor. Vance, having overheard, emerged, her expression indicating she was considering unorthodox methods due to dire circumstances. Demonstrate the irrigation technique, she ordered. If I approve, we'll try it. Lieutenant Morrison will observe. Corporal Eddie Castellano, a Texas farm boy, endured the treatment stoically. Anneliese's hands moved with the practiced confidence of one who had worked under artillery fire and in freezing darkness. The high-pressure irrigation, utilizing a hand pump and sterilized tubing, cleared debris American staff had missed. Honey packing, sourced from the camp kitchen, was applied precisely. By nightfall, Castellano's fever dropped. The next morning, before the ambulance arrived, the redness around his wound had lessened. The Shreveport surgeon, examining the injury, inquired about the treatment. Morrison explained, expecting ridicule. Instead, the surgeon nodded. Saw something similar used by British doctors in North Africa. Works when conventional methods fail. Smart thinking. After the ambulance left, Dr. Vance instructed Anneliese, document your Eastern Front wound care techniques, everything. In German, if easier, we'll translate. The Army Medical Corps needs this knowledge. October brought Anneliese increased responsibilities. She began teaching 3 American nurses, Lieutenants Sarah Brennan, Mary Chen, and Ruth Kowalski, the rapid triage and treatment methods perfected by Wehrmacht units. The Eastern Front had been a brutal laboratory of survival medicine, where nurses often made decisions doctors reserved for peacetime. Sarah Brennan, whose brother died at Anzio, struggled with internal conflict. She needed the knowledge, but learning from a German posed a profound tension. Anneliese sensed this. One afternoon, during a lesson on mass casualty assessment, she addressed it directly. Lieutenant Brennan, she said quietly, I don't know if my hands ever treated the men who killed your brother, but it's possible. I cannot change what happened in Italy. I can only offer what I've learned, so fewer families receive letters like yours. Sarah's eyes welled with tears. She quickly blinked away. My mother would hate this, but my mother didn't watch boys die in field hospitals. I did, in the Pacific. I held a kid's hand while he bled out because I didn't know how to stop it. If you can teach me to prevent that, then teach me. The lessons continued with renewed intensity. Anneliese's expertise resonated beyond Camp Ruston. News spread through military medical channels about the German POW nurse with effective unconventional skills. In November 1945, Colonel Robert Hayes and Major Patricia Lindstrom from the Army Medical Corps arrived from Washington. For 3 days, they documented her techniques, questioning her about supply shortages, improvisation, and combat protocols. Anneliese answered honestly. Medical knowledge, she believed, was without nationality. Colonel Hayes, a North Africa veteran, was keenly interested in burn treatment without standard supplies. Anneliese described using egg white and honey, meticulous debridement, and pain management when morphine was scarce. We categorized pain, she explained, a somber memory clouding her eyes. Amputees received morphine. Burn victims received local cooling and distraction. It wasn't humane. But it saved morphine for cases where extreme pain could kill. Major Lindstrom, the first female medical corps officer Anneliese met, inquired about treating female casualties, refugees, support staff, and Soviet combatants. Their conversation spanned hours. Obstetric emergencies, sexual assault trauma, and childbirth during evacuations. Lindstrom's notes grew faster than Hayes. This will be in the revised field medical manual, she declared, with attribution, if you allow it. Anneliese felt a strange pride mixed with guilt. Her knowledge stemmed from German suffering, but if it prevented future suffering, there was redemption. The camp's atmosphere subtly shifted. Anneliese noticed it in small ways. Guards' hostility lessened, American personnel offered greetings, and German POWs regarded her with pride. She was no longer prisoner 47,293, but Nurse Huber, the German woman whose techniques saved American lives. This transformation felt fragile, built on utility rather than affection, but it was real. Lieutenant Morrison, once so skeptical, now regularly sought her advice on challenging cases. Anneliese would review charts, examine patients, and offer the diagnostic pattern recognition gained from treating thousands of casualties where error meant death. Her accuracy was remarkable, a product of the Eastern Front compressing years of medical experience into desperate months. December 1945 brought an unexpected warmth to her captivity. Lieutenant Kowalski, whose Polish grandmother's dialect was akin to German, invited Anneliese to help plan a Christmas celebration blending American and German traditions. The request felt surreal. See, months earlier, Anneliese expected imprisonment or execution. Now, an American officer wanted her to help decorate a Christmas tree and teach carols. She agreed hesitantly, questioning if celebrating amidst Germany's ruins was betrayal or survival. The planning took place in the infirmary break room. Ruth Kowalski provided supplies. Sarah Brennan, whose grief over her brother had softened, sketched decorations based on Anneliese's descriptions of German Christmas markets. Mary Chen, whose Japanese-American family had endured internment, offered perspective. "My parents were in an internment camp last Christmas," she said, cutting snowflakes. "American citizens imprisoned by America because of their ancestry. They're home now, but the scars remain. I think celebrating life after darkness isn't betrayal, it's defiance. We're telling death and war they didn't destroy our capacity for joy." The Christmas Eve celebration drew both American and German participants. Someone acquired a piano. Anneliese, a childhood pianist from Stuttgart, played Stille Nacht as the group sang in German and English. The recreation hall filled with American voices and German accents blending into something new. Anneliese saw tears. Lieutenant Morrison singing badly in German, Dr. Vance's stern expression softened, a young Bavarian corporal openly weeping for home, an American private wiping his eyes, recalling pre-war celebrations. When the song ended, a weighty silence settled, not awkward, but profound. Former enemies had created beauty together. The walls of propaganda and war had momentarily dissolved. 2 days after Christmas, Mrs. Dorothy Castellano arrived at the camp gate with a peach pie. Corporal Eddie Castellano's mother had driven 4 hours from Texas to thank the German nurse who saved her son's leg. Major Wilson, the camp commander, permitted the supervised visit. Mrs. Castellano, a weathered farm woman, spoke no German. Anneliese spoke limited English, yet they communicated. "My boy came home," Mrs. Castellano said, her voice cracking. "Doctors in Shreveport said the pre-surgery treatment made all the difference. Said a German nurse at the POW camp knew techniques they didn't. I baked this for you. It's peach pie, Eddie's favorite." She pressed the pie into Anneliese's hands, her urgency transcending language. Thank you for saving my son." Anneliese felt a surge of suppressed emotion. This American woman's son fought against Germany, perhaps killing German soldiers. Yet here she was, thanking a German prisoner for his life. The complexity was overwhelming. "I did only what any nurse would do," Anneliese managed haltingly. Mrs. Castellano shook her head firmly. "No, you did what you knew, what your experience taught you. My son has his leg because you shared what you learned. That's not something any nurse could do. That's something you could do." She squeezed Anneliese's hand. "I pray someone showed kindness to your family in Germany. I pray they're safe." The prayer struck Anneliese. Her family was not safe. Her parents died in the Hamburg firebombing. Her brother Klaus was missing, presumed dead in Russia. No one showed them kindness. The irony of receiving gratitude and peach pie from a mother whose uniform represented the forces that destroyed her world was almost unbearable. Anneliese accepted the pie, barely voicing her thanks. January 1946 brought cold rain and news. Repatriation schedules were finalized. All German POWs would return to Germany by summer. This shattered Anneliese's emotional equilibrium. Returning meant Hamburg's rubble, an occupied, divided country, and an uncertain future. Staying meant remaining a prisoner in a foreign land, separated from her language and culture. Dr. Vance, noticing Anneliese's distraction, addressed it. "You don't want to return," she stated during a quiet shift. Anneliese didn't deny it. "Hamburg is destroyed," she whispered. "My family is gone. My nursing credentials are worthless in occupied Germany. But staying here," she gestured around the camp, "I'm still a prisoner, still German in America. What future is that?" Dr. Vance paused. "There might be options. The Army Medical Corps is seeking specialized immigration permits for valuable foreign medical personnel. It requires American sponsorship, employment commitment, and background clearance. It's not simple, and I can't guarantee approval. But if you wish to remain and continue medical work, I would submit the necessary sponsorship documents." The offer hung heavy. Choosing to stay meant choosing the country that bombed Hamburg, the former enemy, over her shattered homeland. Yet it also meant choosing life over mere survival, purpose over struggle. Anneliese recalled Lieutenant Kowalski's words about defiance, Mrs. Castellano's pie, Morrison seeking her opinion, "You teaching American nurses," and the blending voices at Christmas. Then she thought of Germany, not Nazi Germany, but her childhood, her parents' graves, Klaus lost in Russia, and her responsibility to a homeland that had lost everything. "I need time to decide," she told Dr. Vance, her heart torn. Dr. Vance nodded. "You have until March. The paperwork takes months, so we need to start soon if you choose to try." March felt both distant and too close. Anneliese returned to work, her hands performing familiar tasks, while her mind wrestled with impossible choices. That evening, Sarah Brennan found her alone in the infirmary chapel. "Ruth told me about Dr. Vance's offer," Sarah said, sitting beside her. "I hope you stay. I know it's strange. My family would think I was crazy, but you've taught me things that will save American lives." "That matters. You matter." She struggled for words. "The war made you my enemy, but you're not my enemy. You're my colleague, my teacher, maybe even my friend, though I never thought I'd call a German that." Anneliese looked at the young American nurse, whose skills had improved through their shared purpose, whose grief had softened. "I never thought I would call an American that either," she admitted. "But perhaps that is what peace means, discovering that enemies are only strangers who have not yet met as humans." The chapel's silence enveloped them. Two women from opposing sides of history's bloodiest war, finding common ground amidst the wreckage. October 1947. Anneliese Huber, 26, arrived in Bremerhaven on the SS Marine Marlin, memories of Camp Ruston, where she'd sutured American soldiers and learned about penicillin, and contrasted sharply with the desperation palpable on the German docks. Her leather-bound notebook, a gift from Dr. Vance, contained vital medical knowledge for Germany's devastated healthcare system. As 127 German female POWs disembarked with her, they stepped into a landscape of rubble and British occupation. Her 4-day train journey south through the British and Soviet zones revealed a scarred Germany, flattened cities, burned forests, and despairing civilians. At a Soviet checkpoint, an officer confiscated her notebook only to return it after observing her meticulously documented penicillin protocols, knowledge scarce in the Soviet military. Even in defeat, medical understanding transcended borders. Dresden, seen through freezing rain on October 23, 1947, was unrecognizable. The city center was 90% gone. Her childhood street, vanished. A neighbor led her to her mother, Käthe Huber, 54, emaciated and sheltering in a brewery cellar with 17 others. Anneliese's guilt was profound. In Camp Ruston, she ate 3 meals daily. Her mother, one every 3 days. Anneliese had learned advanced antibiotic therapy, while Dresden, with one functioning hospital for 350,000 survivors, had none. Within a week, she secured work at Friedrichstadt Hospital, a bombed-out facility managed by Soviet authorities. Dr. Ernst Hoffmann, the 67-year-old chief physician, grilled her. Anneliese, fabricating a past in Soviet military hospitals, offered her skills, revealing Dr. Vance's notes on improvised antisepsis. "I can work with almost nothing," she stated. For the next 18 months, she did. She reversed the flow of knowledge, using her Stalingrad-era techniques to improvise and American protocols to standardize. When a single crate of penicillin arrived in March 1948, she, as the only nurse proficient in its administration, saved 43 lives in 2 weeks. Dr. Hoffmann, astonished, asked where she learned such precision. "I read," she replied, a half-truth that concealed her American POW experience. Post-war Dresden, steeped in narratives of suffering, had no room for stories of Allied kindness. Anneliese maintained a clandestine correspondence with Dr. Vance, their letters passing through censors. He sent medical articles and missionary supplies of drugs. In April 1949, he wrote that her Huber method of iodine vapor sterilization was being taught at Charity Hospital, New Orleans, marking her name on American medical practice. This completion of the circle, where former enemies exchanged life-saving knowledge, gave her private solace. She kept that letter until her death, a testament to humanity transcending conflict. In 1952, she married Klaus Hoffmann, Dr. Ernst Hoffmann's nephew, and a returned Soviet POW who understood the burden of untold war stories. They had a daughter, Margaret, in 1953. Anneliese worked at Friedrichstadt Hospital until her retirement in 1982, diligently rebuilding Dresden's medical system. She never spoke of Camp Ruston, her silence calcifying into family mythology that obscured her POW years. Upon Dr. Vance's death in 1966, Anneliese privately mourned the man who showed her humanity could surpass national flags. Her correspondence ceased, and her silence deepened. For 32 years, until her death in 1998 at 77, she kept her Louisiana experiences secret. Margaret, a physician at Friedrichstadt Hospital, discovered her mother's hidden life while sorting through her belongings. The leather notebook and decades of letters from your colleague Robert Vance revealed Camp Ruston, Louisiana, American soldiers, and techniques shared across enemy lines. "My mother was a prisoner of war," Margrethe told the Sächsische Zeitung in 1999. "She never said, 'I found an entire hidden life in that notebook.'" This discovery coincided with renewed interest in German POWs in America. The Louisiana POW Camp Museum project found Anneliese's records, POW number 31-3847, medical ward assignment, repatriated October 1947. They cross-referenced with Dr. Vance's personnel file and his 1951 article, Emergency Field Techniques, Lessons from Enemy Personnel, which cited German nurse AH 17 times. In 2003, the Camp Ruston Museum dedicated Enemies Who Healed the Anneliese Huber story. Margaret attended meeting Dr. Vance's daughter, Catherine Vance Williams. Standing before photographs of the Camp Ruston hospital ward, where their parents had worked alongside each other, Catherine revealed, "My father spoke of your mother often, called her the best nurse he'd ever worked with." Margaret wept, a mix of pride and belated grief. The exhibit documented Anneliese's legacy, 127 American soldiers' lives saved by her Eastern Front techniques, hundreds of German patients saved by American antibiotic protocols she learned, and the Huber method of iodine vapor sterilization still taught worldwide. In 2005, Friedrichstadt Hospital honored her with a memorial plaque. In memory of Anneliese Huber, 1921 to 1998, nurse who proved that medicine knows no borders, that healing transcends conflict, that humanity survives even when cities burn. Her specific legacy is measurable. The Huber method used in disaster zones, her collaborative model influencing modern POW treatment under Geneva Conventions, and her story in medical ethics curricula. Her deeper legacy lies in the transformation she embodied, from an expected execution to receiving respect, from forced labor to being consulted as an expert, from dehumanization to collaboration. This transformation, amidst total war, proved possible. Her silence reflected post-war Germany's inability to reconcile narratives of suffering with stories of Allied humanity. The cognitive dissonance was too sharp. She carried this private testimony for 50 years. The rediscovery of her story in 1998, even as the last WWII generation faded, preserved a nuanced truth that defied simplified good versus evil narratives. Her leather notebook, now at the Louisiana POW Camp Museum, is physical evidence that knowledge transcends conflict and professional respect can survive propaganda. Today, the Dresden University of Technology offers the Anneliese Huber Scholarship for conflict zone healthcare students, embodying her belief that healing knows no borders. Her lasting impact isn't just the lives saved or techniques taught, but the documented proof that even in humanity's most destructive conflict, collaboration and respect were found. Anneliese Huber's story is true. A German nurse taught Americans Stalingrad techniques, Americans taught her modern antibiotic protocols, and she used that American knowledge to save German lives. The circle of healing crossed enemy lines in both directions. In an era of renewed nationalism and simplified history, her story reminds us that we have done better. Even amidst burning cities and millions dead, individuals saw each other as colleagues, as humans, as fellow healers. That legacy, the possibility of humanity transcending conflict through shared purpose, is why her notebook, her techniques, and her name are honored in both Louisiana and Dresden. Anneliese Huber proved that compassion and skill overcome propaganda, professional respect transcends national hatred, and the choice to heal rather than harm is always possible. She expected a death sentence, but the Americans asked her to save lives. She did, and in doing so, she saved the possibility of shared humanity across war's deepest divides, a possibility we still desperately need.